Hey everyone! I've just fully remade PoseMod from scratch. It now has some awesome new features. Before I show you the updated PoseMod, I'd just like to mention that I've been helping out a little at a game called IfOnly. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Well, PoseMod's menu can now open anywhere on the game. You can fly with the camera anywhere too. Normal cutscenes and automatic cutscenes can now work anywhere on the game. There is now a new menu option to list every hair on Yandere-chan, and also any hair on students. Do you want to know the name of any hair model? Now you can just check the lists. There's a new option to show every scene in the game, and from here you can load it directly too. On the Advanced Edit menu, there's now an option to list and edit all the shapes from any character. One of the coolest new things in PoseMod is that it can now run on any Unity game. There are now 3 ways you can run PoseMod. If you put PoseMod in Yandere Simulator, you can just run it and it will open Yandere Sim normally. On other games, you can drag and drop the game's executable to the top of PoseMod's executable. But that might not always work, so there is a third way. You can now launch PoseMod on a game that it's already running. First, you create a text file called PoseMod Process Identification. After that, you run PoseMod and it will detect that that file exists, and it will instead ask you for a number. Every program that is running in the computer has a unique number, which is called Process ID. After starting a game normally, you can then open the Task Manager to see its number. Here we can find the game and get its Process ID. This number will be different every time you open the game. Now we can just write this number into PoseMod and press enter. PoseMod will then try to run itself on the game. And it works! PoseMod now also can run on any version of Unity. It can run on any games of Unity 4, 5 or 2017. I've already tried it out on many other Unity games and it's been pretty fun, flying around the maps or importing new things with bundles. Usually Unity games have a menu like this at the start, where you can choose the resolution, full screen or window mode and so on. On Yandere Sim, this menu is enabled, but on some other Unity games this menu might be disabled. A small curious thing I just found is that there's a way to show this menu even when it's disabled by default. First, select the game executable, and then while pressing the left shift, press enter, and the menu will appear. It needs to be the left shift key, it doesn't work with the right key. Well, commands are now in separate DLL files. This file has the generic commands that work on any game, and this one has the commands specific to YunSim. PoseMod will now load commands from any DLL files that start with PM and an underscore. If PoseMod would have commands for another game, then the DLL would be called something like this. On other games, characters don't work like on Yandere Sim, and so the first menu to edit characters won't work. So I've changed the advanced menu to show all the skinned meshes. These are the objects that probably are characters in a game. Pick one and then you can navigate to the parent object or to the child objects or bones. With an object or bone selected, you can then edit in a few ways. Moving on to commands. In mathematics, there's something called functions, which usually look like this. A function is a set of operations. One of their uses can be to shorten the size of some calculation, for example, where there are several steps repeated. PoseMod now has something similar. They are called macros. Macro is the technical name, but in PoseMod we can just call them functions, just because it sounds better. So, you can now define the function like this. First, in curly brackets, you define the name of the function, and after we can define any parameters that this function will have. Then we can put any commands that will use the parameters. And then we can use this function later to shorten the size of files. If you want, you can make some functions that make some complicated operations and then share it online for other people to use. To use functions on several cutscenes, you don't need to have copies of it on every cutscene. On the mod script folder, there is now a new file called header. On this file, you can put any functions and they will automatically be accessible to all cutscenes by default. Now on the if command, you can use ands and ors. You now need to put every conditions like this, and you can put ands or ors in between. A few more commands and if conditions have been implemented. You can check them out on the cutscene commands file. On commands, I've also implemented something that I call indexing. For example, on a command like ref position, you need to specify an object name. That means that when this command runs, PoseMod will search for an object with that name. If there are more than one object with that name, then it will always use the first one that it found. So now on any command, you can add this to define which is the index of the object defined. If you set the index to 5, then it will run the command for the 5th object with that name. You can also set a negative number to get the object from the ending of the search. Setting it to -1 will use the last found object with that name. You can also set it to a question mark to randomly pick one of the choices. And you can also set it to 0 to use the edit object instead. If you need to use several commands all on the same object, then PoseMod is searching for that object on every command, which is not very efficient. So instead, you can search for an object only once and set it to the edit object. Then on the other commands, you can just use the edit object index and it will be faster. By default, the search ignores disabled objects. So on the index, you can also add a second parameter to define if the search will include disabled objects. Other than just running commands, you can now directly call functions from the game itself easily. You can also directly get and set variables from the game. First, you write a component name like this, and then say which object to get that component from. Since it's a normal object search, you can still use indexing. After that, you can say what you want to do with the component. You can directly call a function from it, or set the value from a variable from it. You can also get variables values and store them. First, you write what will be the reference name of the value you're getting. Then you write the component name and the object to get it from. And then what's the variable name? The value of that variable will now be stored in a PoseMod variable with the name you give it. You can now use this value as a parameter anywhere. For example, since we got a number in it, we can use an if condition to check if it's bigger than another value. Or even directly set this value to anything else. PoseMod variables can also be set with direct values. You can also do some basic math with them, like adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. On the Streaming Assets folder, you can find PoseMods folder. Until now, this folder was called PoseMod, but I've renamed it to PoseMod. Inside it, we have the settings file, where we can customize the PoseMod menu window. We can change the background color and text color. Later, you'll also be able to set a background image to it, but for some reason this isn't working right now. A while ago, just for fun, I described how PoseMod Chan would be like, and thanks to HG, we now have a rare model. I still plan to make her suit, but that's for later. Recently, because of work, I only have 3 hours of free time per day, which is barely enough time to do anything productive. PoseMod has several hundreds of commands. One of the things that took me the longest so far was passing all the commands to the updated PoseMod. I've had to rewrite them all, one at a time, and so I didn't manage to test all of them. If you find some command or feature that isn't working, let me know and I'll look into it. I haven't re-implemented every single feature to PoseMod yet, because I didn't want it to take too long to release a download for this updated PoseMod, since there's already a bunch of new stuff you can use it for. I'll work on the remaining features as time goes on, and at least you can already use it for all the features I've just shown you. I also really want to get back working on Anime Life Simulator, since I haven't in a while because of PoseMod. Well, right now PoseMod is mostly used on Yandere Sim, but now that it can work on any Unity game, I'll look at PoseMod more as an independent program. With time I can implement some more things to it, but for now I'll resume making the next build of Anime Life Simulator. Bye.